Fiesta Bowl, LSU and UCF. Again, it's motivation. I just think LSU has too many athletes for UCF. Ultimately, UCF's winning streak has to end sometime. Without McKenzie Milton, they were able to overcome Memphis. They're not going to be that fortunate against LSU. I think the Tigers win in the desert.
All right, well, Brett is leading us right into that game, the Fiesta Bowl, so we know where Brett stands on that one. Let's take a look at this matchup and how both of these teams got to where they are. So UCF is continuing that unbeaten streak. Oh, my goodness. They got some big help from backup quarterback Darryl Mack Jr., who filled in for McKenzie Milton in the American Championship game. He recorded over 300 yards through the air and notched 6 total touchdowns in that win. But it has been a tale of two sides of the ball for the Knights this season. Now, while the offense doesn't seem to have fallen off from last year at all, the defense has had its share of struggles. That weakness was exposed in the title game against Memphis. Now, nonetheless, the Knights marched on to a 25th, that's right, 25th straight win. Now, take a look at what they have done during that span. Point differential, almost 23 points. Total yards per game, well over 500, and a turnover margin of plus 31. Oh my goodness. What of these units between LSU and UCF do you think is going to be the biggest difference maker and what I think is going to be a very tough game for UCF to continue this unbeaten streak?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to be a tough game because LSU's rough and rugged. These dudes are physical, and their secondary is elite. Like, they have guys. Their backups are starters on most teams. So these guys get the job done. We mentioned Greedy. I love Grant Delpit. He's probably the best safety in college football. They go out and they get the job done. So you throw those guys in there with the guy like Devin White, who, by the way, coolest thing, riding his horse on LSU's foot on the field at Death Valley. So I look at this, and the big thing for me that I see is, how does UCF throw the football? How do you sling the ball around? Because LSU has the ability to just lock up. Let's just play man. Let's just play man. Let's roll the ball out there, baby, and let's play some man defense. So I think that's going to be really interesting because that lends itself to having 7 or 8 guys in the box to stop the run. And those things kind of work hand in hand, Kristen, where you have this ability to shut guys. We saw it against Georgia. You have the ability to shut down wide receivers so you can commit more guys to the run game because you're not worried about what's happening in the back end. You know those guys got it on lock. So how that all works, how that all shakes out is going to be interesting. And then obviously you throw in the athletes. And LSU, man, they got some dogs. They are ready to fight. And I think it's going to be interesting to me to see how that shakes out because we know that their defensive line wants to go hunt. We know those linebackers led by Devin White want to go get after it. And then we know their secondary can shut you down. And then when you flip it over, I think the cool thing will be to see how Central Florida's defense handles an LSU offense that is pedestrian at best. I think that's the most polite way to describe it. They are so mediocre and average on offense that maybe this is a game where Central Florida does find ways to get stops. So I think we could be looking at like a 13-10, a 20-17 type football game when we know Central Florida, what did they score, 50-something points last night? We know they like to score the football. So I think they're going to be held below their average, but can LSU score enough to get the W?
Okay, so we know where Brett stands on this one. Real quick, I just want to know, you told me at the beginning of the season that you thought UCF could go undefeated for the 2nd straight year. I thought you were crazy, to be honest. Now, obviously, they don't have McKenzie Milton. You think LSU ends this streak ultimately? First impressions.
I think LSU ends the streak only because I think they're going to score on the defensive side of the ball, and that's going to be the difference in this ball game. But ultimately, we're looking at a game could be very ugly. I think this is going to be like a version. This could be a version of football that UCF fans aren't used to seeing.
They're like, what is this? What is this score?
13-10? LSU's going to drag them down to their level and maybe win with experience.